Okay, well, good evening to every one of you and welcome to this normal monthly meeting of Western Area Planning Committee. I'm Phil Barnett and I'm the chairman of the Planning Committee. Tonight we've got round the table various other members of the committee, which include Dennis Bennyworth, Anthony Amatharaj, Councillor Paul Dick, Nigel Foote. I better put councillors in front, and otherwise you wonder why I'm not calling you councillors. Councillor Denise Gaines, Councillor Tony Vickers, and Councillor Howard Wollaston. The following officers are attended to advise and support the meeting. To my right, Deborah Inston, the team manager in development control. Also at the rear is Cheyenne Kirby, Principal Planning Officer. To my left, Beth Barco, Solicitor. Over on the far right of the room is Paul Goddard, Team Leader, Highways Development Control. Ben Ryan, over into the corner on the left-hand side, is the clerk. And to the rear is Sam Chilverton, who's going to be the Zoom host this evening. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the councillors' code of conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber might not always agree with one another, but I would like to ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of other views. Tonight, I must just point out, and especially to members that are perhaps first time into the chamber, if we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please note where the exit routes are from this room. You need to proceed via a safe emergency exit route and follow any instructions given by the officers. The assembly point is in the car park at the Dolphin Pub. If the lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and await further instruction from officers. We will adjourn the meeting at that time and then we will return to proceed when it's safe to do so. Do members have any questions about the way the meeting is going to be conducted before I start? I suspect not, but I need to ask the question. Ben, apologies.
Chairman, we've received apologies from Councillor Clive Hooker and Councillor Adrian Abbs. Okay,
and obviously Councillor Adrian Abbs is not being substituted by anybody else that I gather. His normal substitute is not available either, whereas Councillor Bennyworth is substituting for Clive Hooker, who's otherwise engaged. Thank you very much. Moving on then to the two sets of meeting minutes which we need to approve tonight. Firstly, we need to consider the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of May. Any comments on those minutes? Otherwise, can I have a proposal, please? Right. Councillor Dick proposing and Councillor Gaines is seconding that particular set of minutes. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, I think that was unanimous. Except for, okay.
I was absent.
From right, you're going to abstain. Okay.
On a point of information, Chairman, I note that we're now in the minutes just including a link to the YouTube. Is that now going to be standard going forward in Planning Committee, do we know? I know it saves a lot of work and time, but it does exclude those that aren't able to access YouTube. That's just the point I was making.
If you don't mind, Chairman, I can answer that one.
You can answer it, right.
So
thanks, Ben.
As of present, then that is standard practice for us at Democratic Services.
Okay, thank you. If we then can move over to the second set of minutes, which refer to the meeting held on June the 19th again, Any comments on that set of minutes first? No. Again, then, can I see a proposal?
So
Right.
proposed, Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Dick. And again, councillor Gaines has seconded it. All those in favour, please show. Okay, and you're probably abstaining because you weren't present.
That's correct, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, councillor Bennyworth. Okay. Right, I need to sign the minutes, don't I? Which set of minutes do you want me to sign? Shall I do it afterwards? Okay. All right, okay. All right, okay. Fair enough. Okay. Moving on to item 3, declarations of interest, and perhaps I can go round the table. Any declaration? No, no, no. Right, councillor Vickers.
Just the usual one, as I'm a member of Newbury Town Council and also on the planning committee. And we have an item in Newbury on the agenda.
Right, councillor Foot, I would imagine it's probably the same declaration.
Exactly the same, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I'm also on the planning committee at Newbury Town Council as well. Thank you.
And I know there's a trio, and there's going to be 3 in a row now because the chairman's going to also announce he's in the same position. The only thing I will also make a comment on, I wasn't present at the meeting when this particular item was discussed, so I don't think probably I need to make too much of a meal out of that particular point. Okay, councillor Dick.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. So I'm ward member for the second application, but I don't intend to speak in that capacity because there's no need in terms of representations. But I have had information from the applicant and from a key objector, but I'm confident that I can make a fair decision using the information from Monday and the debate this evening.
Thank you very much. That's us. You're happy with that? Did I miss you, councillor Williston?
You did, but none.
Okay. I think the reason that I wasn't calling everybody out because I was looking specifically at particular hands at that time. So sorry about that. It wasn't intentional. I know quite often you have declarations, especially when it's associated with Lambourne Valley. Okay, right. Then we're going to move on now to the main part of the meeting, and I'm obviously referring to item 4 in brackets 1, which refers to the application 23/01-037/FUL Newbury Gardens Day Nursery, Greenham House, Greenham Road, Newbury. And I'm going to obviously turn to the officer who's going to present the case. So it's over to you, Cheyenne.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This application is for Newbury Gardens Day Nursery, Greenham House, Greenham Road, Newbury. This application has been brought to committee as we've received over 10 letters of objection. This application is for construction of a new building containing 5 2-bedroom flats with associated infrastructure and landscaping on land adjacent to Greenham House. Greenham House is a Grade 2 listed building. And then to the north of the proposed development is Newbury Conservation Area. A railway line to Newbury Station is also located to the north of the proposed development. Permission 20-02191 has commenced on site. This permission was for the construction of a new building containing 4 2-bedroom flats with associated infrastructure and landscaping. Therefore, the principle of residential development has been established by the approval and the commencement of works. This application differs from the previous in the following ways. There will be the insertion of 4 dormers to the roof, which 2 will be to the north elevation, 1 to the east, and 1 to the south. The roof height will also increase by a maximum of 0.3 meters. And it will also involve the removal of the chimney. The overall roof form will remain similar to the approved, with proposed changes not considered to have a significant impact on the character and appearance of the area, including the adjacent conservation area. The proposed dormers have been reduced in size to decrease their visual bulk and impact on the conservation area, making them fit within the roof form much more sympathetically. The key issue from a building conservation point of view relates to the impact of the proposed development on the setting of Greenham House. The level of harm is considered less than significant, but the level of harm of the proposed development in MPPF terms must be weighed against its public benefit. The development will bring 5 new dwellings in a sustainable location close to the town centre and railway station. The development will retain most of the boundary trees and the existing site entrance. It will also create the potential for 1 affordable housing unit to be provided or a contribution to be provided. The proposed dormers are not considered to have a significant impact on the neighbouring amenity due to the proposed location of these, which is away from the neighbouring dwelling located to the west of the application site. The quality design SPD requires that an area of amenity space on site is required for residents, which is 5 times 52 square metres. This would bring a total of 125 square metres. The area provided is over 500 square metres and therefore meets this criteria set out in the SPD. In total, 5 parking spaces have been provided and 1 visitor space in accordance with policy P1. The increase in the additional dwelling triggers for a contribution to affordable housing. However, due to this being a single unit, it is likely that a contribution will be the most appropriate method. Due to the location of the site close to the A339, the environmental health have identified noise and air quality mitigation measures are required in order to ensure the quality of life for future residents. This submission includes details of noise and air quality measures which are to be secured by condition. This also includes obscure glazing to the western elevation. This is for the non-habitable rooms to allow natural light, as the staircases will prevent any overlooking from the neighbouring dwelling to the western by having the glazing obscured. The proposal has carefully been assessed to ensure the proposal is appropriate in scale and design, while taking into consideration the impact of the character appearance of the area, including the adjacent conservation area and listed building. The proposal is considered to have a less than significant impact on the adjacent listed building. And this proposal is recommended for approval, providing that a Section 106 agreement or unilateral undertaking has been completed in regards to affordable housing. On the screen now is a comparison between the previously approved scheme, which has been technically implemented, started, and that's to the left of the screen. And then on the right-hand side is the proposed changes, which includes the removal of the chimney, the proposed dormers, and the maximum 0.3 metres in roof height. And these are the Greenham Road elevations, which also show the proposed changes. So these are the floor plans. This is the ground floor plan. There is no proposed changes to this to what's been previously approved. And it includes the bike store as well that you can see in the top left-hand side of the screen. This is the first floor plan. Again, there's no changes to this. This is to provide another 2 units. And then the main change is on the second floor plan, where an additional unit is to be provided along with the 4 dormers. And on the screen, we have a landscaping plan because the site does have TPOs. It will lead to a loss of 1, which is a bit hard to see, but it's the northern tree in the middle of the screen that will be replaced. But the other trees will remain and further planting is proposed. And this has been secured by a landscaping scheme. This is the image from the Greenham Road. And you can see the neighbouring dwelling in the background on the screen there. The access will remain as existing. And this is from the view from Station Road, again, with the neighbouring dwelling shown on the right-hand side there. And this is on the site looking north towards Station Road. And then this is from Greenham House, so still looking north, but from Greenham House. And this tree that you see in the front of the image, that's covered by a TPO and that will remain, along with the additional 2 trees on the left. This image on screen now is the existing mature screening looking west towards the neighbouring dwelling. And then this is on the site looking east towards Greenham Road. This image on the screen is from the neighbouring dwelling looking into the site. And this is a second image from the neighbouring garden looking into the site. The tree on the right, the big tree, that is also a TPO, and that will remain. And that's everything. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I'd just like to point out, especially to visitors to this particular meeting, that under normal circumstances, I would have identified the set procedure of the speakers. On this application, it's slightly different because under most applications, it would be obviously the parish and the town would get the opportunity to speak first, and then objectors and supporters and applicant or agent and ward members. In the situation of this particular application, we only got objectors. We haven't got any representatives from the other groups. So at this particular point, I'm going to turn to the objectors, and I don't know whether you've already been. I've just been pointed out. Did you wish to make any comment at this stage, Paul Goddard? Or would you wait?
Thank you, Chairman. I consider that Cheyenne Kirby, the planning officer, has covered all the issues that I would have mentioned. So I appreciate you coming back to me, but I'll answer any questions.
Okay, I'm sure there will be some questions regarding access and egress at some stage. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Ready for them, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the objectors. I don't know whether you're going to speak, both of you, for the 5 minutes, or whether one, or how are you going to work it? Well, we will notify you after 4 minutes anyway, if you get to 4 minutes, and then you've got the further minute to use up if so wish, or you can actually have more than a minute if you don't get to that point. Okay, over to you. I think you've already been shown how to operate the microphone.
My name is Kay and I live at Roselle, which is the house next door to the proposed development. My house was built by my grandfather in 1910 and is split into 2 flats. The A339 is a fast-moving, busy road, especially at peak times when traffic can stack up from the traffic lights at Cheap Street. Footfall is constant from children and pedestrians. On Tuesday, the 14th of July, at approximately 8:40 a.m, I saw a large food delivery lorry block the 2 lanes of traffic on the A339 as it reversed into Newbury Gardens Day Nursery. A child in St Nick's school uniform ran behind the lorry as it was reversing. Fortunately, the child made it to the other side. The proposed building of 5 flats would have more cars, delivery lorries, etc., doing these dangerous manoeuvres, as there is only going to be one exit in and out onto the A339. In addition to this, at the site visit on Monday, the 22nd of July, the builder representing the proposed developments stated that all construction material would be delivered via Ashridge Court and Fountain Gardens. Has there been any formal agreement between Ashridge Court and Fountain Gardens re this access? And has there been any consideration of the impact of the construction on Fountain Garden residents? I'm concerned by my right to light. Not only is the proposed building going to block out our morning light to the 2 flats, but the proposed cycle shed is shown on the plans as situated next door to my boundary fence, which in turn is in front of my kitchen window. This shed would be on the site where Japanese knotweed was found. Is there documentation to confirm that the Japanese knotweed has been eradicated? Trees and bushes are shown on the plans to be planted alongside my boundary fence. I'm concerned that when these mature, the roots will come under my fence and into my main drains, which are situated nearby. The site in question was a former parkland. It forms a habitat for animals and birds, including regular visits from hedgehogs. Has there been any consideration for wildlife?
Thank you very much.
Exactly 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. So okay, you've got a further 2.5 minutes if you so wish to take it up.
Oh, do you mind turning on the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, the paperwork. I noticed the SUDS engineer has refused to agree this development because he says there's insufficient drainage. You've only got, looking at the plans for the surface water, you've got one soakaway, you've got 2 groundwater pipes that go from it, and they're all on the north side of the building. I mean, one pipe goes to the northeast corner, and the other pipe goes to the bike sheds. There's 4 inspection places, 2 by the bike shed, 1 at the soakaway, and 1 at the northeast. There is actually nothing on the south of this building. And the drainage engineer said that only half of this building has been catered for with the soakaway. I mean, we get all our bad weather from the south, basically. I mean, Roselle has got a soakaway on the south side and the north side. There's 2 soakaways. And that's what you would expect if you're draining all this water on the south side. There's no drainage there. I mean,
1 minute remaining.
The car park and everything hasn't got any drainage. So what's going to happen to this water? I mean, in a period of time, you're going to get problems with the foundations, aren't you? I mean, on the plan, they've got a surface water pipe going across the roof. Now, you know, I mean, it's been, they put the actual dimensions for this pipe, and it goes up the roof and then down the other side. Now, what is a surface water pipe doing that? I mean, I don't get any impression that these people that designed this project know actually what they're doing. I mean, all the plans you've got from the
10 seconds remaining.
The architect's plans are full of errors. You can see, you refer to the top flat.
Can you
it's got a
conclude
wall,
your
it's got a wall
presentation,
between
please?
the middle.
Time.
I think you've now got to your 5 minutes.
Okay. So
I'm sure
thank
there'll
you.
be several questions, so
Okay.
probably you might be able to put your point across during the questioning. So if you can stand at the lectern, and I don't know whether Kay's come into the lectern as well, because I think you both get a chance to answer any points that members might have. So members, questions to the Lipscombs. Councillor Vickers.
Before I ask my one question, just to reassure you that you've made a lot of points, which we will follow up with questions to officers. But my question to you, Kay, is: are you happy with the construction arrangements of construction sites through there? Never mind what the neighbouring property owners will be. It does seem to be quite a good idea not to use the A339. Don't you agree?
I think it's appalling because that road is so dangerous that is the only entrance that they say that goes out onto the A339, and is also says about there's no pedestrian. The previous planning was the pedestrians were coming out onto Station Road, but according to this new one, there's no access for the pedestrians going out onto Station Road, so everything will be going out onto the A339.
Actually, the question was about construction site access by the builder, but I note what you've said about pedestrian access. It was onto Station Road, presumably, was it?
It was originally, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Further questions, members? No? Okay, you can return back to your seats. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Right, as I said earlier, we've got no applicant, we've got no ward member, and we've got no supporters speaking. So, members, questions to officers, and obviously it could include Paul Dollard regarding highways. So, Councillor Vickers, I don't know whether you wanted to follow up from what you were saying early on.
Well, that would be a good idea, as I've just mentioned it. Yes, probably is a question to Paul Goddard. Interesting that there was in the previous approved application, which of course is implemented, a separate pedestrian access. Would you like to comment on its removal by this applicant? Obviously, I can't ask the applicant why he's done it, but what is your view of having that removed?
Chairman, thank you. While such an access onto Station Road would have been ideal, considering the width of the access onto the A339, I still consider that pedestrians can also share the access onto the A339 with vehicles. I would suggest to members that this is a relatively small development of up to 5 flats with very limited vehicle movements. And therefore, even though the route to the Station Road has been deleted with this proposal, I still consider that pedestrians can be accommodated on what is a shared access with the limited vehicle numbers expected. Chairman.
Councillor Dick first, and I'll you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the officer for a very helpful and clear report. Obviously, we heard some questions there, and I have some other comments, but in terms of questions, can we talk about flooding, please? And I do note on page 49, 6.32, goes around the houses a bit, but does say that it seems to be adequate. Can we just be clear about that, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There was in-depth conversations with the drainage team about this. They weren't happy with the information that was submitted and they didn't believe it was good enough. However, we have an implemented scheme which was approved and the drainage was approved previously. So unfortunately, that my hands are sort of tied in terms of I can't refuse this one on drainage issues, given that we have an implemented scheme which proposes exactly the same, which has an approved drainage scheme on it. So, you know, it is a shame, and like I said, there isn't much I can do, given that they could legitimately build out the 4 apartment scheme with exactly the same drainage.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor?
I do, and I don't want to get into any legalese, but the building is slightly taller, and slightly taller, and there's more roof, I think, given the nature. So I wonder whether officers could consider a condition, an extra condition, perhaps after discussion with the drainage specialist, just to reassure people that the new building has better drainage than perhaps the old one did.
Okay, I'm
Just
going
a
to bring in Deborah because I think she needs to add a couple of points to that, Councillor Dick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, we certainly can add a condition requiring sustainable drainage systems. And I think in paragraph 6.32 of the report, it does say the condition is to be applied to secure sustainable drainage measures. So we can add that as an additional condition.
I think that would be helpful, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to ask similar question what Councillor Dick has asked, just to elaborate on the point, because I'm slightly concerned about the explanation given by the case officer. Just to particularly pinpoint on the surface water drainage plant, if there are no sufficient redressal in the plan, would it be for us committee, would it be detriment to apply this or consider this application, considering there is a nursery and there is a livelihood, young children in that site. So what is that impact? I'm trying to ask, what is that impact in terms of impact to lives there? Because they are.
I'm not completely clear on your question. Are you assuming that this could impact the nursery from flooding? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what I'm implying.
That's-
Because if there is no sufficient water drainage plans, and if the officers are not happy with that, are they not happy that there will be impact to life potentially? Is that serious, or is just a simple matter of there is no adequate drainage?
I'm not a drainage engineer, but I would assume that the concern is there's not enough surface water drainage. But however, we have approved a previous scheme, so which SUDs have approved with a similar, and I don't know why they've picked up on this application, which is exactly the same drainage scheme. They've chosen to refuse it for technical reasons, which are not under my rule or knowledge. But I don't believe their objection is significant enough to be impact on life. I think it's more the drainage aspect in how they're going to deal with all the surface water, because obviously it will include more hard landscaping, which could cause surface water. So it's not, I think the concern is not flooding itself, it's surface water. So not impact from rivers and things. So it's more how it's going to be dealt with and how it should be dealt with on site. They have a concern with, and they believe more drains should be available. But I do not believe that their concern is for life against the day nursery. Is that
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Are you happy with?
I'm happy with that answer, but
Yep.
I think it would have been better if drainage officer is there considering this application as that one objection. So for us to clarify, but yeah, happy with
Okay.
that response so far.
Okay, right, counts again.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Mr. Goddard, I'm going to revisit the Station Road access again. Was it officers or was it the applicant that actually changed the Station Road access? And if it was officers, can you sort of elaborate as to why we did that, given that, you know, pedestrians would have to share the same access as vehicles? Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. The applicants submitted the proposals in the way that's before you. They decided to no longer provide that footway length, what was there with the previous proposal. And as explained previously, I don't think the views are strong enough for us to object to for reasons that I set out before. But, you know, it would have been nice to have kept it there. I don't know why they've deleted the footway. Maybe it was to provide more landscaping and garden, etc. Perhaps.
Thank you.
Okay, right, Councillor Vickers, I think, was the next.
Yeah, it's sounding rather unsatisfactory that I believe this was a delegated decision first time round. I think I'm right. And yet we're coming across items which clearly officers and certainly ourselves are are not entirely happy with, and we can do nothing about it, it would seem. Although Deborah Inston has indicated that we might have a SUDS condition, and there's not one in the list. I've also noticed there's no condition for the Japanese knotweed. Now, has that, the existence of that only just been notified by the neighbour this time? Because that would seem to be a serious matter that requires perhaps a separate condition to ensure removal. But in other respects, you know, for example, the roof area might increase the amount of slates. But, you know, if it's on the same footprint, I can't see that the surface water drainage requirement would change whatsoever. So it is bizarre that one set of drainage team say it's okay, and then the next one says it's not. But it does, I understand why we can't do much about that. But can we do anything about the Japanese knotweed, perhaps?
Deborah,
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that was the first we've heard about it, and I think Cheyenne can confirm that about the Japanese knotweed. We can, we would obviously, if there has been Japanese knotweed there, it would have been reported to our public protection team. So I could check that. We can put a condition on though for if Japanese knotweed is found, for a management plan for its removal. And that's certainly, so it would allow inspection of the site for Japanese knotweed, and then subsequently, if it was found, a management plan for its removal.
I know once you disturb an existing incursion of Japanese knotweed, you actually can make it a lot worse very quickly. It's best left almost as it is. But we clearly will be disturbed by the building work to create the cycle shed right on that site.
So yes, we can certainly add that condition.
Any further questions, members of officers at all? No? Okay. Okay, right. Well, who's going to open the debate? We've got two Newbury members. Well, Councillor Dick, you're going to open the debate.
Well, in the absence of anyone else, my anxiety when I went on the site, I think I'm very happy to hear what we've heard about the drainage, that will be resolved, so we don't need to be anxious about that. The Japanese knotweed was produced on Monday, so again, that's taken care of. Was actually the light and the view to the house next door, but from what I've seen and looked at and examined, I felt that this was not a concern. And since the building is very little different from the previous approved application, I'm very much positive about this application.
Okay, right. The foot first, Councillor Gaines.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this is, you know, we've got an approved application that has been modified basically, and it is rather strange that this issue of the drainage has cropped up, exactly as Councillor Vickers said. But nonetheless, that previous application has been approved. The footprint of the building is pretty much unchanged. The roof height is going to be increased by, if my calculations are right, it's round about a foot, which in the real world is not a huge amount. So I think you know, I think I am minded to go along with what Councillor Dick has said and to approve this. However, there's absolutely no doubt that, as Kay mentioned, you know, the egress of vehicles onto the A339 is a concern, and we do know it's a shared entrance and exit with families, young children, you know, heading towards the nursery as well. So that is a concern, I have to say, having lost the access to Station Road. But I think in a way our hands are tied with that previous approval of that previous application. So I think on balance, I would be inclined to approve this. Thank you. Okay,
right. Councillor Gaines first, then Councillor Avraj, and then also Councillor Bennyworth. And obviously, I'd be keen to receive a a formal proposal at some stage. Carry on, councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
James.
It's in a sustainable place. It's on the same footprint as the previous one, so I can't see anything wrong with that. Disappointed the Station Road access had been removed because that sounded like it was a good idea. So it didn't share the other access. Happy with the conditions for they're not weeding the suds, and very happy with that there's going to be a contribution to affordable homes. So I'm happy to propose officer recommendations.
So,
Sorry, I'm just going to clarify the construction management plan, just while it came to my top of my head. Once we were on the site visit, the applicant said that they were going to bring access through the other entrance. I will just clarify that I've conditioned it to be carried out in accordance with the construction method plan that's been submitted, which doesn't require that. So we'll just clarify, if they choose to do that, they need to come back in and change that. So we'll just clarify that the construction management plan states that that all construction traffic should come off the A339. And I tried to clarify it with the agent, but they haven't come back to me.
right.
But so I just thought I'd let you know, just to make sure.
Make this as a formal condition? Or?
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt, Chair, to actually just put a condition on now requiring submission of a construction management.
Chairman, I agree. 'Cause considering the builder, the applicant that actually told us that's what he plans to do, then I think they need a new construction management plan that takes account of that, particularly, the permission and the measures he's going to take not to inconvenience residents going through that, because there are some vulnerable residents in that cul-de-sac.
Okay. You've obviously
happy to-
proposed, and I was going to say you're happy.
Happy to include that.
Well, I'm looking for the seconder too. Are you formally seconding?
No, Chairman, I'm just trying to see a different perspective here, because I agree with a lot of concerns from what has been said here, particularly on the drainage situation. I think Councillor Foot said our hands are tied. I don't think necessarily our hands are tied, because we are looking at a fresh application with a modified roof and extra flat for a previous approved application. But we have to look at this application in terms of what is presented to us. And there are a number of issues, primarily the SATS issue. And now just case officer mentioned to us that the management plan is missing. The construction management plan is a key one for this one, because the A339 access, if not used, the other access which has been shown by the applicant is a strong objection, and it's not being clarified whether the people around that back of the Greenham house agrees to that one. So we will be in a dilemma, or the case officers needs to look into the plan more thoroughly and come back to us. And I'm not entirely sure with this open questions we will be able to approve it, although it looks like like 4 flats and 5 flats and then an affordable housing, but there are key questions unanswered here, so are open-ended. So I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I think you're mentioning various different issues, which I think officers have made quite clear in the last presentation, that some of the points which you were a bit concerned about, Councillor, but I've already got a proposal from Councillor Gaines, which also includes this management plan, which Deborah has made quite clear should be included at this particular stage. So really, I think unless there's other specific issues which you feel ought to be included in a proposal, and I think this will be an appropriate time quickly for you to identify them, because what I'm concerned about is we'll go ahead and we will possibly well, I can't totally advocate it, but I suspect it will be seconded and properly approved. But is your points going to be addressed? That's the issue. Not I'm a bit concerned.
So in that case, I'm trying to propose, like, because we've seen a lot of construction in other applications where developers have started building as soon as they received our approval. So can we be absolutely making sure that there will be no spades in the ground without a construction management plan and proper addressal of the SATs issue, the drainage issues? So absolutely clear on that one, because I've seen even today, just not related to this application, I've seen a case where in my ward there was a potential condition which was not met. So I just want to make sure that it is absolutely clear that any construction start.
Right, I'm going to ask Deborah to clarify some of these points.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to clarify, the approved application has a CMS that's been approved as part of it, and Paul can probably confirm that is the case, isn't it? And Cheyenne can confirm.
It's the same one.
It's the same one that's
As the
been
one
submitted with this. So in effect, they could carry out development now, it's extant, and build out the 4 units following the construction management statement that they've had approved on the approved plan. However, it's not unusual for putting in a condition on a consent requiring the submission of if they are looking to change it. It's not an unusual situation to require it by condition to have those details. We don't always have them up front, but we can certainly, once we have that and once we have approved that, I mean, obviously it's down to our enforcement team to enforce any of the conditions that we place on a permission. But I just thought I'd make it clear that the CMS that has been approved on site, that the development that has been approved could be carried out in accordance with the CMS that's pretty much in effect been submitted with this application. But if the applicants are looking to change where they're bringing in the materials during the construction phase, we will add that CMS onto this application, so we can ensure that the highways team are happy with the details.
Okay, right. I'm still looking for a seconder, actually, and Councillor Bennyworth wished to actually speak. He was next in the pecking order. Sorry, Councillor Bennyworth.
You're very kind, Chairman. Thank you. I was just going to say, from my point of view, I think the extant permission makes this difficult to go against. I hope there'll be a suitable housing contribution, given that it looks unlikely, looking at the plans, that any of these units will be affordable housing themselves, and I hope we put up a robust argument for suitable remuneration for that. And I just like to say, Chairman, I'm slightly disappointed that the applicant isn't here this evening. It's regrettable. There are questions that.
No.
Oh, okay. No. Well, there are questions I think that that could have been answered, and that would have been desirable. But we are where we are. I think it's going to be difficult to go against this, and we'll have my support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I made my comments initially that I was a bit concerned that we had the lack of speakers on this particular application. Right, sorry. Was it Councillor Williston had his hand up? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just don't see how we can refuse this, to be honest. So I'd prepared to second the officer's recommendation, subject to conditions we've discussed.
Okay, thank you very much. It's not normal, or at least I've tried not to enter my personal views on debates on applications since I've sat in this chair, but the only comment I would make is that it does sadden me somewhat when I see the small little green lung within a urban conurbation disappear, and I got to make that point because I feel quite strongly about it, and it does sadden me. But also I recognise the comments been made around the table tonight in relationship to the earlier application does have quite a considerable bearing on our views on this application. So without further ado, can I have a show of hands to the proposal, please? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Can I just double check the?
Oh, sorry.
Please. Yeah, thank you.
Have you-
Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I can just confirm the conditions before the vote. So for a SUDS details to be submitted with the application, a Japanese knotweed management plan condition to be added, and a construction management statement to be submitted as well as additional conditions.
Can we just emphasise that it also includes recommendation to refuse if there is not a section 106 that deals with the affordable housing? Because I think that is really the main gain that we have from this whole application.
Which is the.
It's in there, but I think
it's-
we need
it's in
to
there
actually
because-
be
yeah,
explicit
yeah.
about it, given that
Yeah.
the negatives that we've heard.
Okay. Proposal seconder, does the conditions that's just been stated by Deborah acceptable to you both? I mean, I never actually mentioned it earlier because they had already been considered and mentioned, but of course Deborah wanted to make certain that it's clarified exactly correct. and
Yes,
you
Chair,
obviously
I actually did propose based on the condition, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Similarly, Chairman.
Okay, and you're happy as well, Councillor Williston. Okay, I now return to the voting for that proposal. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, and I'll obviously vote as well, so it's unanimous. Okay, okay, you've got it all.
I've got it.
You've got it all. Thanks very much for attending. If you so wish, you can disappear if you're quietly out of the room. But if you did want to listen to the second application, you're more than welcome to. Okay. As it's only, so have they left a coat? Yeah. As it's only 1923, I propose that we continue on to the second application. All in agreement? Okay. So we now move on to item 4 in brackets 2, which is application 23/02/802/4 Priors Court Farm, Priors Court Road, Hermitage. So I don't think I probably need to mention the format of how the speakers will go, but you will obviously get your opportunity in due course during the process. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Deborah, who's going to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the change of use of land at Priors Court Farm to provide up to 84 storage containers for self-storage use, which is within the B8 use class. And it also includes an erection of a boundary fence. The application is part retrospective, as 73 of the proposed 84 storage containers have already been placed at the site, and a section of the proposed timber fencing has already been erected above the brick wall at the site entrance. The application comes before committee due to having received over 10 letters of objection. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions set out in the committee report and as amended in the update report, which I shall go through later. On the screen there, we have the location plan. The site is located along Old Street, which is accessed from Priors Court Road, just before Priors Court Road passes over the M4 towards Hermitage. The site is within the open countryside and also within the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. There are no public rights of way within the vicinity of the application site. I think the nearest one is the other side of the M4. Numbers 7 and 8 Priors Court cottages bound the site to the east, and you can see them in the bottom corner. I don't know if you can, oh, my just down there. Bound the site to east with the curtilage of number 7 occupying over half of the eastern site's boundary. Amended plans have been received during the course of the application, and the amendments include details of the retrospective fence erected above the front boundary wall, and a revision to the red sightline so that the secondary access from Old Street adjacent to number 7 Priors Court Cottage, which is, if my cursor is just here where my cursor is, that has now been removed from the application site. So the red sightline has been redrawn, so it excludes that access. Now, so the only access into the site is the main access, which we can see here. Now looking at photos. These photos, first photo in the top left-hand corner shows the main site entrance with the closed board fencing that's been erected above the brick wall. The photograph in the bottom corner shows the front boundary, shows the screening along the front boundary, and the photograph's probably a bit too small, but there's a metal fence just behind that screening which will be replaced with the timber fence in a similar fashion to, as you can see on the site entrance there. This view of the site towards the north of the site taken from the site entrance. On the left-hand side, you can see the existing warehouse on the site, which is outside of the application site area. It joins the site area. And then you can see on the right, the storage containers which have been placed on site. This photograph shows views to the northern section of the boundary and the screening that's in place there at the moment. This photo is down a view from towards 7 Priors Court Cottage. So the buildings that you can see on the left here are within 7 Priors Court Cottage and form the boundary, the eastern boundary. The boundary with the site, although the site actually itself, the red sight line, like I said, because it excludes this access down here, the sight line runs along here. And here's a view of the site entrance from within the site. The majority of the site is laid to tarmac at the moment. And like I said, the containers will be served by the existing vehicular access off of Old Street. Existing boundary planting will be retained to preserve the relatively high degree of screening into the site and minimise the character and visual effects on the local rural landscape. New planting is proposed along the site's frontage, as well as along the northeastern and eastern parts of the site boundary. And this will provide additional screening to both the proposed containers and the neighbouring warehouse building. Each container is 6 metres in length by 2.4 metres in width and 2.6 metres in height and would be dark green in colour. This plan just shows the elevations of the fencing above the boundary, the brick boundary wall. And the fence, the proposed fence, like I said, is going to extend the boundary height to approximately 2.5 metres and is proposed to continue along the entire front boundary wall, but will be largely screened from Old Street by existing vegetation and additional planting that's also proposed. No objections have been received from any consultees, and the Parish Council have not raised any objections to the proposal, subject to improved landscaping around the site. Representations have been received from 15 objectors. The objections largely concern the impact on the North Wessex Downs national landscape, the impact on the residential amenities of the occupiers of number 7 Priors Court cottages, the potential increase in vehicular traffic, and the breaches of planning consent that have taken place on land within the ownership of the applicant. And also the breach of planning condition 6 of an enforcement appeal that was allowed in 1988 for pallet storage across the site, which stated that no pallets should be stored within 25 metres of the boundary of the site with number 7 Priors Court cottages. Returning firstly to the principle of development, some aerial photographs of the site here, and members' attention is drawn to the fact that an enforcement appeal, which I just mentioned, was allowed by the planning inspectorate in 1988 and planning permission granted for the whole site area, including the western and eastern sections for the operation of a pallet business and for the storage of wooden pallets. And the photo in the top corner there is taken from 1999, which shows the pallets on site. The photo in the bottom corner is 2021, which shows the new warehouse building that's been developed on the western half of the site and some storage containers here. The site in question that we're looking at is the area to the east of the warehouse building. It is acknowledged that the warehouse was constructed in 2016, partly superseded the pallet storage business insofar as the land upon which the building was erected. However, the lawful use of the application site remains for the operation of a pallet business and the storage of wooden pallets pursuant to the enforcement appeal decision. Condition 6 of the inspector's decision stated that no pallets should be stored within a distance of 25 metres of the boundary of the site with number 7 Priors Court cottages. And it is noted, and as you can see on there, that the area that I've highlighted in yellow is approximately 25-metre buffer from number 7 Priors Court cottages. So you can see that the proposed containers will be within that 25-metre buffer. However, it is important to note that the nature of proposed self-storage containers is materially different from open pallet storage. While self-storage containers would typically visit by car or a small delivery van, and the nature of the use means that customers do not frequently visit the site. Pallet storage, by contrast, involves larger vehicles, including HGVs, visiting the site more frequently, as well as forklift trucks or other similar machinery in operation throughout the day, generating far more noise and disturbance to the neighbouring properties than the proposed self-storage container use. This is why we consider that the containers within this buffer is acceptable, because they are materially different to what the inspector was considering in 1988, which was the pallet storage. The application is considered to be compliant with development plan policies in terms of the rural economy. Policy CS10 notes that existing small and medium-sized enterprises within the rural areas will be supported to provide local job opportunities and maintain the vitality of smaller rural settlements. And whilst it is recognised that the proposed self-storage units do not result in an increase in additional on-site jobs, they do provide indirect benefits to the local economy due to the role they play in supporting small local startup businesses who require affordable and flexible storage space. The use is therefore considered compatible with the existing nature and use of the site and is supported by the development plan policies. Turning to the proposal's impact on the character and appearance of the area, all existing boundary planting will be retained, which will preserve the high degree of screening already present on site, and new planting proposed along the boundaries, along the frontage, front boundary, eastern boundary, and part of the northern boundary, will provide screening from long views of the containers and the existing warehouse. So again, for these reasons, it is not considered that the proposal would impact the wider setting of the North Wessex Downs national landscape. In terms of the proposal's impact on residential amenity, which has been raised by a number of objectors, the reasons set out earlier in terms of the use of the site compared to pallet storage is materially different. And we also need to note that the containers will be accessed, will be controlled by secure gates that require a uniquely generated code to open the gates on each visit. So we would be securing the operating use of the site, the hours of that. Whereas at the moment, the pallet storage business, there was no conditions on the inspector's decision restricting the hours of operation of the pallet storage business. Highways impacts, the highways officer has raised no objections, and they do not feel the proposal would have any adverse impact on highway safety or the free flow of traffic. I'm just going to turn members' attention to the update report. We have received, we've received an additional letter of representation, which raises some points with regards to the committee report. So I'm going to briefly take you through them now. One of the first issues was that the proposal does not generate additional jobs, so cannot be said to comply with policy CS10. As explained earlier, but whilst it recognised that they don't provide any additional on-site jobs, given the nature of the use, they do have a role to play in supporting small local startup businesses. The scheme should be another objection, the scheme should be assessed as general B8 storage use in terms of its trip rates, as there is nothing in the description of development which would limit the storage use to only self-storage. Condition 2 in the report restricts the use of the site to self-storage. And we've recommended that this condition can be tightened as set out in the section earlier, ensuring it's just been reworded slightly to just tighten it so that the development permitted can only be used as a self-storage facility for personal and business use only and for no other purpose within use class B8. Concern has also been raised about noise generation. However, it's noted that the Environmental Health Officer has raised no objections to the self-storage use and does not think there would be any concerns in terms of noise. Concern was raised about the fact that no landscaping condition was attached. In the update, members will see there is an additional landscaping condition that we are recommending to be attached to permission, should it be approved. There's also I won't take you through, but there's clarification of the access code entry system, which the applicants provided us. In terms of the updated recommendation, a landscaping scheme, in terms of additional conditions, there'll be a landscaping scheme to be submitted. There's a condition to limit the number and height of the containers, to limit them to 84 containers, and that they should be placed at ground level only, so they can't be double stacked. We've also added a condition to restrict the vehicle size limit to 3.5 ton vehicles, no greater than that, serving the container storage facility. And like I said, and also a restriction on the use of the site. So having taken account all of the relevant policy considerations and other material considerations, it is considered that the proposed development complies with the development plan when considered as a whole, and is therefore recommended to members for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the committee report and amended, and those amended as amended by the ones set out in the update report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Paul Goddard, got any points you wish to raise? Highways issues, Paul?
Yes, please, Chairman. The existing access is onto Old Street, which is public highway. The width of the access is suitable for the size of the vehicles that have been to the site before and are expected with this proposal. The sight lines onto Old Street are in compliance with standards following speed surveys that were taken in front of the site. And the number of vehicle movements expected with the proposal should be about 6 in, 6 out per day. So in our view, it's a very light traffic generator proposal for the storage use proposed. And on that basis, your highway officers have no objection to the proposal, subject to the conditions contained in your main report and the ones added in the update, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Now, do we have Howard Williamson, the objector, on Zoom?
Yes, Chairman.
Hello, Chairman.
We can hear you.
Hi there. Hello there.
Are you able to put your video on at all?
I can indeed. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, we can see you.
Hi there, Chairman.
Okay, and you are aware you've got 5 minutes. And
Yes, I
then-
am. Thank you.
Then the members could well ask some questions following on. So when you're ready, just let us know and the 5 minutes will commence.
Thank you. My name is Howard Williamson. I'm a chartered surveyor acting on behalf of my clients. I believe planning policy has been misinterpreted by the planning officer and make the following considerations. Existing use. The officer's report confirms the site falls within a larger site owned by the applicant. The officer has commented the use class of the adjacent building to be B8 warehouse. This is slightly misleading to the committee as the building is restricted by condition to storage of event furniture only. The reason for this restriction was to control future uses on the site with the respect of the dwelling to comply with the core strategy. Restrictions were also on vehicle access to just 4 vehicles in total as dealt with under condition 4. The council have reviewed 3 planning applications for development on this designated AONB land. The core strategy hasn't changed. There is confusion over the officer's recommendation for approval. In the presentation just disclosed by the officer has not had regard to the more recent application and use of this subject site in 2002, whereby the land was actually subject to a landscaping scheme after temporary storage. This had not been mentioned in the presentation just now. Principle of development. The officers recognise the site is within the AONB, where only appropriate limited development will be allowed. He confirmed planning policy directs storage uses to defined employment areas. He recognises the site is outside of a defined area, but states it's adjacent to land that has B8 use, and thus on balance, the principle of change of use to B8 is acceptable, making no reference to the restrictions on the use of that B8 building. He references policies which lend support to schemes which provide local jobs. However, the applicant has not claimed the scheme will generate new jobs. Without such employment benefits, it's unclear as to how the scheme would attract the support of the core strategy. Highways. The officer states proposals for such use will be assessed against the impact of the road network. He has determined the impact on the roads would not be harmful. The traffic counter location was misleadingly positioned to the east of the site access after the turning into the site from the main road, recording only traffic flows to adjacent residential properties, excluding counts to and from the development and the applicant's wider site. The applicant has chosen to instead reference traffic flows of a domestic storage facility in Winchester. The information submitted to Highways is misleading and a deliberate misrepresentation of the existing traffic flows to and from the development and the applicant's adjacent buildings. My clients have submitted evidence of large HGVs visiting the site to unload goods, including cargo containers. The evidence showing the highway safety implications caused. Landscape and visual appraisal. I referenced the applicant's landscape and visual appraisal, viewpoint number 2, specifically the closed board fencing along Old Street. The fencing has been erected on land owned by Highways, and a statement from Highways England has confirmed that the applicant has no consent to install the fencing, and this is subject to removal. Therefore, the screening will soon be removed, opening up views of the shipping containers, which are positioned in the rural countryside and AONB. Environmental health. The environmental health officer has based her assessment on her own assumption of 6 vehicle door slams a day, in reaching a conclusion that there will be no noise objections. This is misleading from the scale of the development, and with the absence of any noise assessments, how can the committee reach an informed
1 minute
decision?
remaining.
My clients have reported loud bangs and clangs from the loading of containers, many of which are occupied by commercial users. Policy test of conditions. Planning conditions need to be enforceable. The wider site owned by the applicant is subject to planning complaints, including the breaches of conditions for the site's unlawful expanding use and breach of vehicle conditions. My clients have submitted their evidence showing the use of the development on Sundays, causing traffic, noise and disturbance. The suggested conditions imposed by the officer are completely non-enforceable. In conclusion, the officer's report is misleading, with a clear misrepresentation of facts which are supported by evidence. The application should be refused as it conflicts with policy. My clients have instructed proceedings for a judicial review should the committee approve this application today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Williamson, we've got various questions, so be prepared. Right, Councillor Amasraj first.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Williamson, for the presentation. Apologies if I missed. You mentioned you are representing your clients. Who are your clients, please, if you could elaborate?
I have a list of clients, of local clients who live in the neighbourhood, many of which who have submitted their own representations. Would you like me to provide a list?
No, not sorry. I'm not looking at the list of names. I want to understand the context. Like when you said clients, are they the neighboring residents? Yeah.
Correct. They are residents who live in the area. Correct.
Other members, right, Councillor Vickers.
Hello, Mr. Williamson. Yeah, I'm also, or was, a chartered surveyor and was the planning spokesperson. In fact, I probably should declare the interest that I'm on the Council of Partners of the North Wessex Downs National Landscape, because this is in the national landscape, as you're aware. My question to you is, there's a lot been said by your clients and yourself, you referred to the policy on the AONB and whether this type of development would be appropriate. It does actually say in the policy, core strategy ADPP1, that appropriate limited development of this sort, and indeed including for employment use, could be allowed. And I don't agree. Are you saying that you don't think even indirect employment, that this, I think demonstrably by the numbers of people that are waiting to get home extensions and open up businesses from their home, and while waiting, you'd expect them to need some self-storage. So don't you agree that there is a justifiable case for some development of this nature in what is a very sustainable location that's not going to involve huge amounts of traffic down country lanes?
So I think with the existing use of the site and the wider
Talking about a new use, though, aren't we here? We're talking about a very specific new use, self-storage for small businesses and residents.
Correct, which has been operational for some time, which is where the confusion is as to the lack of actual information, i.e. traffic counting, noise assessments, to see what that impact is. We've already heard today that, there are a number of containers already on the site. I think the number was 76 in total, yet we still don't actually have any accurate traffic count records of where those customers are coming from. I think demand for storage facilities, and if you do the research, you will see that there are a number of self-storage facilities, 9 self-storage facilities in a 5-mile radius of this scheme, most now also offering significant discounts for the first 8 weeks of storage. So there has to be a question of, is this development actually necessary? Newbury Storage is a new facility which has opened up. The first 14 weeks of Newbury Storage contracts are being offered at 50% discounts. So there's limited take up and demand with these offerings. So is this really a sustainable location for this nature of development on this site? And my clients are adamant that that is not the case.
Okay, right. Councillor Foote.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, could I ask you, Mr. Williamson, you mentioned in your report you gave us that you felt that the wall and the fencing would be potentially removed in the future. Could you just elaborate on that? Because I was a little bit unclear what exactly you meant. Thanks.
Absolutely. So just to give some detail, this is the fence that is subject to a separate planning application on Old Street, which is the bend of the road, which is actually included in viewpoint 2 of the applicant's assessed appraisal and visual reference report. So viewpoint 2 of that shows the close board fencing that I'm referring to. Highways England, who are the registered landowner of the land, have looked into the case and a statement has been submitted. Councillors have received that statement as well as planning officers, showing that there is no consent for that close board fencing and that action is considered to be taken. And the applicant is relying on that close board fencing to screen the proposed development to align with the AONB regulations. So that is the challenge with that land and visual appraisal. It's not deliverable given that the applicant doesn't own the land and does not have the relevant consents in place to erect that fence to mitigate the land and visual requirements within the AONB.
Okay, any other questions to Mr. Williamson? Right, Councillor Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson, for that presentation. One of the things you mentioned in your presentation was you alluded to the fact that it's being used for commercial uses, whereas the actual report fairly strict, sort of says that it's going to be household and small businesses. Do you have any evidence that it's actually a commercial uses? Because you did mention on a couple of occasions HGVs going in and out. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. The planning officer has received photographic evidence which has been attached to the planning file. That evidence shows large HGVs pulling into the site and also parking on the blind corner of the road outside the boundary of the access. Those representations have been submitted to West Berkshire Council. In addition to that, I believe that on the website of the storage company, they advertise for commercial use. And finally, there was an incident on a Sunday morning whereby photographic evidence was submitted of a commercial vehicle attending to the site whilst the site allegedly should be closed, unloading building materials and tools into what is an empty container. So you can only imagine the clangs and the bangs that, you know, kind of echoes around the area once you start throwing those materials and tools into these not very acoustically managed structures. So there are three sets of evidence which are attached to this file, which portray the commercial use of these containers.
Thank you. Okay.
Is that exhausted the questions? It seems to. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Williamson. We'll now move on to the applicant, and I think Kerry Fletcher, is it? Hello again, 5 minutes. When you're ready, we will commence.
Thank you. So I'm the agent for the application and the applicants are with me tonight. Planning permission is sought for the change of use of land to provide up to 84 storage containers for self-storage use, together with the erection of a boundary fence. The application site forms part of an area of previously developed land with commercial buildings to the north and west. The site has planning permission for the operation of a pallet storage business that is unrestricted in terms of operating hours and vehicular movements. The principle of commercial development on the site is therefore already established. The proposed container storage would be subject to strict operating times of 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday to Friday and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays, with no access on Sundays and bank holidays. The site is secured by way of a secure electronic gate that is shared with the adjoining commercial buildings. Customers of the container storage register a phone number with the applicants, and when that number calls the entry system number during opening hours, the security gates open. Outside of the opening hours, the phone numbers of container storage tenants will not activate the gates. Outside of the opening hours, the phone numbers of container storage, following a few teething problems with the system initially, as the objector referred to with the Sunday incident, it's now fully operational and there haven't been any known faults. The containers would be a maximum of 2.6 metres in height, which is 0.4 metres shorter than the permitted pallet storage. Whilst the containers would be closer to the neighbouring residential property of 7 Priors Court cottages than the permitted pallet storage, the containers would remain in situ and would not be subject to regular movement by forklift trucks. The containers would therefore lead to less disturbance to the residential amenity of the neighbouring property than the former pallet storage business. The council's environmental health officer has raised no objection to the application. For the committee's information, number 7 Priors Court cottages is now owned by 2 of the 3 applicants, with the adjoining property of number 8 lived in by the other of the 3 applicants. The proposals are estimated to generate a total of 12 traffic movements per full opening day on average, and a condition is proposed limiting vehicles to 3.5 tonnes in size. The Highway Authority have confirmed the proposals would have no material impact on the highway network. In response to the objector who has referred to HGVs using the access, just to confirm or to clarify that the access is used by furniture for events next door. So there are HGVs going through, but not to the container storage. Also, Old Street is often used for informal parking of HGVs. And as those that were on site on Monday saw, people often get lost. There was a car trying to pull into the site that wasn't there. So yes, there are instances, but it's not related to the container storage. Also, in response to the objector, as well as indirect jobs, the applicants have now employed someone to undertake invoicing and management, so there is limited direct employment. The height of the proposed containers would be lower than that to which pallets can be stored, and their formal arrangement and green colour would help them to assimilate into the rural location to a greater degree than the ad hoc storage of pallets. The application site is well contained, and any views of the containers would be within the context of the neighbouring storage building. Also, with reference to the objector and the fence that was referred to the west of the access, this is subject to a separate application, and there is a consultation response on file from Highways England confirming they raise no objection to that fence, which is on their land, and we've served the correct notices. The proposals would not therefore cause significant harm to the landscape and scenic beauty of the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. The appeal inspector who allowed the pallet storage also found that the site was somewhat degraded and unattractive and a rather
1 minute remaining.
corner of the AONB. The application has been recommended for approval by officers, subject to a number of conditions that are agreeable to the applicant. The application is only before the committee tonight because more than 10 letters of objection were received, the majority of which were from the objectors who have spoken tonight and their family and tenants, including one person who rents a container at the site. The application site is only located within close proximity of 2 residential properties, and it has been demonstrated that the proposals would not affect the residential amenity of either property and would in fact cause less disturbance than the permitted pallet storage business. Furthermore, both properties are in the applicant's ownership. It's therefore requested that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions put forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, members, Councillor Bennyworth, I think Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned the colour of the containers, and forgive me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Inston, but I don't know that that's conditioned in the report. But if it isn't, would you be happy with the condition that stated that they had to be of a uniform colour that was acceptable?
Yes, we'd be happy. I think it is in the updated conditions.
Yes, I can confirm it's in the update conditions to be dark green.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, right, Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Ms. Flager. You mentioned that you've got on file, or perhaps we've got on file in the council, Highways England saying there's no objection to the fence. How can you explain that Mr. Williamson seemed quite adamant that there was an objection? Are we talking about the same fence or what? I mean, presumably you've looked into this.
I think he's talking about that there's been permission granted from Highways England, whereas the fence was erected, I believe, without permission, but they haven't raised any objection when they've been contacted about it being put up. And in relation to the application, they have stated that there's no objection to the actual fence.
That's the important bit. They've actually said in writing that they have no objection rather than there not being an objection, which is slightly different.
Yeah, it's on file for the fence application.
We're talking about the same bit of fence, same bit of highway.
To the west. So as you drive into Old Street, it's the fence on your left-hand side.
So the retrospective bit of fence rather than the one you've yet to have erected, your client.
Yes, so there's a fence. So as you drive into Old Street, there's a fence on your left-hand side before you get to the access to this site. And that fence is subject to a separate application outside of tonight's application.
Related to that, does Highway England own that whole bit of road of Old Street? Is that, I mean, because that...
I don't know the full extent. Paul Goddard's nodding behind you. So.
Okay, well, we'll check that out with the officers and that's best way.
Okay, any further questions at all? Okay, thanks very much. Right. Councillor Dick.
Well, Chairman, as I said, I had a lot of requests and information from the person who's leading the objectors, and very little, but some information from the applicant. When we went on Monday, I was very interested to see the impact on the local scene, because when you read that, you know, the detail, you think, wow, this is big. So we went up there, and many of us were there. What struck me was the huge comparison with the approved use of the site as it is. In other words, as the officer said in her very clear report, the impact of this retrospective application is significantly less than the current license, if you like, and pallets and so on. Noise was a concern as well. The security that's been mentioned, and it was good to hear that it hasn't worked but does now, because again that can explain an anomaly, the telephone system and so on and so forth. So I'm content that there won't be out of hours activity there. I'm also impressed by the fact that we're talking largely, probably mostly family cars or very small vans, given the proposed restriction on it. I was also concerned about ambient noise because of where it is. And actually, A, so going to be a lot less noise from that site, and B, there's much more noise from the motorway. We couldn't hear ourselves think or talk half the time. So you'll be hearing or gathering from me that I feel positively about this good use of that piece of land. Thank you.
Okay, although technically, ward member, you're not actually at the lectern. I will just look.
As a member of the committee. So
I know exactly. I know exactly, but I will, just look around the room in case there was any burning questions. But I'm sure there isn't. So at that point, I'm going to then move on to members asking Paul Goddard and Deborah Inston anything that needs further clarification. Councillor Willison first, and then your good self.
Thank you, Chairman. Could we just get to the bottom of just who owns this land with the fencing's on, and whether there is definitely approval or agreement, at least, from the Highways England, or what they call themselves?
Thank you, Chair. We answer the question about the ownership.
I can do, Chairman. National Highways own quite a bit of land along this area here. It's historic. Old Street was the original Priors Court Road. Priors Court Road was diverted south with the new road bridge that goes over the M4. So when they bought the land for the M4, they also built all the land that was necessary to divert Priors Court Road. So yes, they do own the land that the fence is on. And as you've heard, they have no objection to the fence being provided. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Amersfoort.
Thank you, Chairman. Question to the officers. I do I agree with Councillor Dick that on the site visit, I did feel that this is having that palette, dark green color matching the surroundings is a better use of the land. Maybe a rhetorical question of devil's advocate, like question to the officers. Considering this is a retrospective, we've already seen 73 of the storage containers already in place. Is there a enforcement action, possible enforcement action on the site that the containers should be removed and the old pallets? I'm purely asking from a rhetorical, because I started by saying that I do consider having the containers is a better use than having the pallets, which is approved for this site. But is there an enforcement action for those containers to be removed?
Thank you, Chair. The enforcement team, this application has been submitted following a visit by the enforcement team who visited the site and felt that rather than take any enforcement action, given the nature of the site, they welcomed an application to be submitted to regularise the development, which is why the application is before us at the moment.
Thank you. You answered my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Right, Councillor Foot.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Could I ask, have we had any representation, or particularly regarding noise, from Priors Court School? Have they raised any issues at all? Thanks.
No, they haven't, Councillor Foot. Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay, well, we then enter the debate, and who's the good councillor that's going to open the debate? Councillor Gaines.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I like being threatened with judicial review as an opening statement from the objector, but we'll pass on that one. Neither is it material planning issue about whether it's actually feasible and a viable site for economic use. So again, that's something we shouldn't be considering. I can't see a problem with this particular site. I know where the site is. I didn't go on Monday because I was actually at another meeting. But as Councillor Dick said, it is on just by the M4, so the noise won't be a problem. It is already being used as a site for pallets which are not as aesthetically pleasing as, if you can call a container aesthetically pleasing, but it's a lot less movements on site because they're not being moved around. So I can't actually see a problem. So I'd like to propose officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. Right, do you want to come back, Councillor Ahmed-Raj?
Yeah, I can second that one on Councillor Gaines one, being not part of the ward. So I can propose that if Councillor Rick is happy with that, because I pretty much agree with that. Also, just to add on that, the pallets where the containers are more safety prone and pallets were fire prone compared to this one. So it's a more better, and the safety wise, it's better. And I'm happy to second that.
Well, thanks very much. And I think just to make a couple of observations myself, I think I would fully support your comments that you've just made. I'm not a keen lover of seeing pallets piled up anywhere, and the fear of fire is great. But I was very impressed by the material of the containers, and I've realised that we're looking at a different ballpark altogether, completely different. Right, before we take the vote, is it something else to add to the debate, Councillor Vickers?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I know you're supposed to move to vote, but it's come rather quickly. Anthony, Councillor Gaines proposing as the first thing we had. I just wanted to deal, because obviously the objector's representative has done a thorough job, and I think for the sake of the people he's representing, there's just 2 points I would just like to point out that in the AONB, it is not a no development anywhere or anything. I'm very keen on preserving the AONB, but when you've got an M4 driving right through, bang through the middle of it, we're talking about grey belts in green belt territory. I think this is not the most delightful part of the AONB, and in fact, being close to a junction, I think, is an ideal location for a use such as this, because it minimises the travel for many of the users. It is extremely accessible. And the other point is whether or not the applicants have sort of oversaturated the market is not a planning matter, you know. And I think they may well have done. There are, I think, far too many self-storage right in the middle of Newbury, which is not an appropriate site, generates very few jobs in the most sustainable of employment areas. But there we are. It's been approved, that one. But this one, I think, is a more sustainable site and no harm to the AONB that I can think of.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Bennyworth, and is that something further to add to the
just very briefly,
information?
if I may, I think in agreement with colleagues, I think that from my point of view also there's an improvement, regularization of traffic movements, which I think will be a benefit and I think is desirable. And just finally, just how surprised I am that ward member, former headmaster, didn't take the opportunity to stand at a lectern. But I shall be supportive, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Chairman, I feel the need to speak.
I will allow you to speak because your name has been mentioned, and I think it's appropriate that you can respond.
And ignoring my colleague across the chamber, but apologise to you. When you turned to me after the questions, I'd already told you that I wasn't going to speak as a ward member because I didn't feel the need. So I thought you were looking at me to begin the debate. So I did. Apologies, but I do stand by what I said. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think you set the scene, Councillor Dick, anyway. So, right, now we know need to consider. Sorry.
I'm just saying, do you want to go to Deborah?
No.
Do you want to check with Deborah?
I was really going to ask members, what do we need to have as conditions within the proposal?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Chairman, there seems to be quite a lot of good conditions anyway. They've got, you know, we're actually looking at restrictions of hours. We're looking at restrictions of material on site. So I think, you know, and restriction of movements of vehicles. So I think I can't think of anything else that would be required, but I bow to officers more knowledge.
Just one question, Chairman. I mean, the objector claimed that the conditions were unenforceable. I personally am convinced by this electronic system that the main one, which is, you know, to do with access and traffic movement, is enforceable. Can the officers perhaps confirm that we have an enforceable condition there? I think it's number 5, is it? About hours of operating hours. And should we actually condition that it is of that type of access control, electronic, because it doesn't at the moment?
Well, we could, yes, I mean, we could add to that condition to say in accordance with the scheme that's been put forward, but I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think so, because I mean, what if it sort of broke down and they didn't bother to repair it and reinforce it? Is it number 3 as well? Restriction on.
Sorry, Chairman, I just.
Oh, sorry, is it in the update sheet?
The updates sheet describes the access code entry system, but you're right, the actual condition doesn't specify that it has to be this exact system that they have in use at the moment. It just specifies the hours, which I think are enough at this stage, because there could be other technologies in the future that may be better than this one. So we wouldn't want to limit it to this particular technology.
Okay. I'll just quickly look at the ward member. Was there anything else you think we should include?
Not in my opinion, Chairman. I think the officers have done a very clear and useful job there.
Okay. Without further ado, then, we've had a proposal, we've had a seconder, we've identified the conditions, and therefore, hands up in favour of that proposal. Okay, I think you've got unanimous. We declare that that proposal's gone through, so Thank you very much for your attendance and sorry, councillor Bennyworth, the hour and a half has been passed, but my 2-hour estimation hasn't reached yet. So we're halfway there. Okay, thanks very much, members. And before I close the meeting, just to remind you that I'm sure there will be a meeting in August, from my understanding. And also we need to look very closely at the possibility of it could well be another special occasion somewhere possibly in the autumn. So make sure that you've got some available time.
Chairman, can I just ask the date in August? That's published already?
That is fixed, yes. Is it 24th?
24th rings.
21st, I think.
21st, is it?
21st, yeah, Wednesday the 21st.
Right, councillor
Chairman,
Sarge.
I'm not sure whether this, I'm have to, in this meeting, but I for the next 21st August, I would have to attend remotely if it's possible. But,
Okay.
but only request was, I think I would have made offline request if you defer the either quarters one.
Okay. Well, without further ado, I'm going to formally close the meeting at 20:16 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.